Hey y'all, welcome into Basketball by Association. My name is Arky. Shea. Joining me virtually on the old computer is Mr. Joel C. Cortez. Joel, how about the internet, huh?
Yeah, the internet is a good thing. It allows me when I'm, not prepared because somebody hot mic'd me again to figure out who wore number 52 and to run down that list even as I speak right now. There's a lot of different options for number 52. One of whom I'm very tempted to do just because he's so near and dear to Knicks fans' hearts. That would be Eddie Curry, but he only wore number 52 for one season when he was in Dallas, and that's not really all that fun now, is it?
Yeah, we don't need an Eddie Curry episode. We're fine. We're if this podcast goes 100 years, we still don't need an Eddie Curry episode.
So we could go in. I'll give you some choices here. We could go very, very respectable in Jamal Wilkes, a guy who won some championships with the Lakers. Buck Williams, who is like one of the all-time Iron Men, played for the Nets, the Blazers, or the Knicks. Or we could do more of a commemorative edition for a guy who really just got a raw deal when it came to the NBA and was, somebody that I think at the end, regardless of how you felt about his college career or whether you liked him or not, everybody was rooting for him. That was Greg Oden. He did wear 52 with the Blazers.
We can make it the Greg Oden episode. We can make this. I was about to say posthumous, but I don't think he's dead.
No.
We can make this the no, I'm about to say memoriam. Still not dead. The commemorative episode. That's why
commemorative works. Other choices would be like Chucky Brown, who played for 10 different NBA teams across the 90s. And then you're into like Todd Fuller and Matt Geiger, and that's just not as much fun as Greg Oden. So
yeah. By the way, Greg Oden, apologies for trying to kill you twice on the show already. That is
hasn't the man been through enough? Let's be classy now.
I think his legs have been through quite the life already. By the way, before we get started, since we're on Greg Oden, did you expect more from Greg Oden? Not just because of the injuries, but did you think that we were going to get a long career from Greg Oden that was going to be fruitful? Because I always stared at him at Ohio State and just thought, I don't know about this guy.
Hindsight, of course, is really murky on this to be able to honestly go back. But I did have major concerns already at that time, because even though Shaq was still patrolling the league and there were other really good centers out there, it did already seem like we were starting to move away from that. There just weren't any new Shaqs coming down the line. And even Greg Oden at his most dominant at Ohio State didn't profile necessarily as like the next Hakeem or David Robinson. It was going to be like an all-star caliber center, but probably not a Hall of Famer. And it did feel like deja vu for Kevin Durant, kind of staring people in the face, as good as he was at Texas and the way that the league did seem to be trending in that sort of direction, for the Blazers to pass over him in favor of Oden the same way they passed over Jordan, back in the day. And it really did feel like history repeating itself. Like, here you have this wing who has scoring abilities that even back at that time felt like they could be elite Hall of Fame level. And you're going to go for the traditional big man who already has injury issues, right? And Sam Bowie already had some injury question marks, just like Oden did. So yeah, it felt like history repeating itself. I thought best case scenario, Oden was like a 3 or 4 time All-Star, but one of those guys who wound up having like an 8 to 9 year career in his prime, and then after that was going to be broken down. So I didn't expect the same out of him as I did Durant. But again, how much of that is me looking back on the past and what's the actual honest answer without a time machine? It's really hard.
Well, sure, because remember Kevin Durant, everyone was like, he can't bench press anything. Like,
right?
Where's his strength? How's he gonna be able to handle himself in the NBA when it's all rough and tough? And
meanwhile, Greg Oden can bench press Kevin Durant, right? Like, it can't be done.
By the way, that 2007 draft class, not too bad, especially the top. So you had Greg Oden go to Portland. Seattle picked Kevin Durant. you remember who was number 3 on that list? Went to the Hawks.
It wasn't Joe Johnson. Wasn't it Diaw?
It was Al Horford.
Al Horford went 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Diaw must have gone right before that then, because he was
number 4 also out of Ohio State. You remember that great tandem? Went to Memphis.
4, yeah, that would have been OJ Mayo, because then Kevin Love, right?
Well, no, Mike Conley, and Greg Oden. Those were the
because OJ Mayo was USC. That's right.
Jeff Green was 5th on that list. Corey Brewer 7th to Charlotte. They got traded. Joakim Noah was number 9 overall, by the way.
Yeah,
the Knicks could have had him, but didn't need him.
Well, they got him later. I mean, the Knicks got him later down the line.
Got him in the sweet spot of his career. Thaddeus Young was number 12 on that list.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very solid yeoman list right there.
Jared Dudley, number 22. Aaron Afalo went number 27 overall. Obviously, just hitting the high spots here. There was another one that I saw here earlier. Oh, yeah, Marc Gasol, number 48 overall.
Yeah,
it was pretty good. And I think that was of the notables. Yeah, a lot of foreign names that didn't pan out in the United States of America that are on the list, especially toward the back end of that draft.
Before we get too far into the show, and I know we're going to talk about projections and predictions here for the second half of the season, that sort of thing.
We are.
I want to run an idea by you here because it kind of ties into it. What do you think about James Harden's case for MVP at this point? And hear me out, because we've been really down on James Harden on this show. We try to be very honest, but we also try to give people that are due. Harden obviously had a very acrimonious and ill-fated departure from Houston. But at the same time, upon arriving in Brooklyn, he's joined a team that has not had much depth, even as they've made some moves, has had Kyrie Irving in and out of the lineup, has had Kevin Durant hardly in the lineup at all when Harden has played, and yet they continue to march up the standings. He continues to pile up really obscene numbers, and now to do it in, I think, an even more challenging way, because he's not the sole focal point of everything they do every night. He is on some nights when Kyrie sits, but then on nights when Kyrie plays, Harden has turned into Mr. Facilitator, and he's done that with Durant as well. DeAndre Jordan had some quotes about that in postgame the other night, and Steve Nash obviously has sung the praises of Harden a lot. We talked before about Joel Embiid's MVP candidacy kind of being tied to whether the Sixers get that first seed or not, and now he's going to be out 2 weeks. Like, Harden's case is beginning to grow on me. Some of this was self-inflicted, but I mean, he's really stepped up to the challenge there.
Yeah, absolutely. And even on Saturday, just passed Larry Legend on the scoring list. By the way, you would think that list would be higher than 34th all time right now.
Bird didn't play as long as people think he did, right? That career was a lot shorter.
You think Larry Bird and the legends and all the stories and the moments in the playoffs, and you think that dude played for 22 years or something, and that's not the case at all.
No, and in fact, that's kind of the Greg Oden thing, where it's like he has an 8-9 year span where he's really dominant, and after that, it's breaking down. And that was Bird.
Yeah, a lot of back issues, a lot of issues toward the end of his career that you sort of kind of forget about when you're not really thinking about it. When you're reminded when you see, oh, James Harden just passed Larry Bird on the scoring list. How did he come up so quickly? Yeah,
what's he doing so far down there? And it is a testament to Bird that despite that small window, he's still considered one of the top, depending on who you are, top 10, top 20 greatest players of all time. Some people even try to rank him higher than that, which I don't know if I can do because of the longevity issues. But I mean, he still is so far up there. And, Barkley has even said this, and Jordan has said this too, that it was Magic and Bird as probably the two most influential players in NBA history as far as turning the league around.
And then Shaq would say he was also on that list of influential players if you were to give him a chance to answer it. We are going to talk about some projections going forward to the second half, because we are in a mad dash sprint toward that second half, and we are already underway, as you may know, by James Harden passing Larry Bird on that old scoring list. But first, can I tell you that it's March, and it's time to talk about the tournament season. And you know what? Your bracket's not going to be perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect. But with the Manscaped Performance Package, you can be confident that your nose, ear, and ball pubes are, Joel, you know what I'm talking about. The Manscaped Performance Package, it can be yours right now. It's the ultimate men's hygiene bundle and #1 overall seed this season. That thing ain't getting upset, no doubt about it. Along with the award-winning Lawnmower 3.0, including this package, is the Weed Whacker ear and nose hair trimmer, which provides proprietary skin-safe technology, which helps reduce the nicks, snags, and tugs in those delicate holes. Right now, you can get the Performance Package, and if you order it, not only will you get 20% off and free shipping by using the promo code BRAWL, BRAWL at manscaped.com. You will get there two free gifts, Joel C. Cortez. 2 free gifts, including their Manscaped boxers and the Shed travel bag. Talk about comfort. Also, I know we get a little crude sometimes with this advertisement, but your purchase does go towards a good cause because Manscaped is partnered with the GOAT, Alex Caruso, and the Testicular Cancer Society to bring awareness to testicular cancer, men's health, and early cancer detection. So literally, there's no way to go wrong with this. Go to manscaped.com, use the promo code BRAWL to get 20% off and free shipping when you go buy the Manscaped Performance Package. Do it.
Is it this is going to be low class of me, but is it really the best? I mean, Alex Caruso, love him, but he's a guy who was already at a loss for hair to begin with, right? Like, I mean,
you said low class.
I did, but
you went there. You totally went there, Joel.
He is like the poster boy for NBA male pattern balding. Like,
wow.
I mean, I guess he makes it easy. We'll see.
He does make it easy. Okay, so the second half of the season has just briefly gotten underway as we seem to have little to no effects from the All-Star night that was in Atlanta, which is good to hear, except for we did immediately come back to Joel Embiid getting hurt basically 17 seconds into coming back to the second half of the season.
I have to say, I was watching that game, and I was watching Embiid dominate again, and it had been a while since I had watched a Sixers game, and I wanted to check back in on them because everybody's healthy finally, although Simmons wasn't back quite yet. And I was like, yeah, he looks like the MVP. He's shooting threes at nearly, I think it was over a 40% clip, you know, the huge double doubles. And we talked about that last week, and just watching him really control the game. And I kid you not, I turned away from that game, and it was like 30 seconds later that he suffered the knee injury. Like, and that was my feeling too when I turned back and find out. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, come on.
Yeah, I follow a significant number of Philadelphia 76ers fans accounts, including 76ers Brawl, which is a podcast you can get here on the Brawl Network. And there was a lot of consternation for the couple hours before you found out between the injury happening and what the diagnosis would be and how long he will be out. And it's a bone bruise. He's going to be out a couple of weeks. But Joel, a super scary moment for the 76ers fans because it's not just the process and Joel Embiid, and it's the dude who was inarguably, I believe, the MVP of the league so far.
Yeah, I agree with that. And now what does that do to his candidacy? Does that open the door for James Harden? LeBron's not going to go away from that conversation because he never does. Giannis is playing very well since the break. Obviously was MVP of the All-Star game. The Bucks kind of could go on a tear here and jump back into that. And there's starting to be some groundswell for Nikola Jokic again because the Nuggets are playing much, much better and have kind of been just slow and steady improvement since that really poor start. And we've talked about their inconsistency. They're 7-3 in their last 10, sitting in 5th place in the Western Conference. And they've been doing this with a lot of Jamal Murray slumpage going on. So, and Michael Porter Jr. being in and out of the lineup. So Jokic is getting some credit there. I don't know that we have a front runner at this point, especially if Embiid is out a week longer than we think, or, comes back and has a little bit of rust. But thank goodness for the Sixers, Ben Simmons is back, and it goes back to being his show. And typically they've been in pretty good hands when, he's running things kind of as the sole star.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, his candidacy for MVP. Listen, we're only a couple days into the 2 or 3 weeks he's going to be out for Joel Embiid. So, it's tough unless you're just truly dominant to absorb a 2 to 3 week loss in statistics and really just to sort of be out of the mind of the people for the most part when you're watching the games, especially the second half of the season. But this was a guy that was playing on a whole different planet than what he's used to be playing on. And you brought up Ben Simmons, the fact that he's back and they play well with him. And I won't argue that too much. But this year feels a little different. Like this year feels like Ben Simmons is fine and he's good, very good and all. But Joel Embiid's the dude that's going to make that team try to win an Eastern Conference championship. And without them, there's not a ton of teams that's probably going to be able to dethrone them. But I don't think they're the favorite.
No, not without Embiid. Absolutely not. Simmons will orchestrate. He'll fill the box score. We've talked about how much better of a defender he is than people give him credit. And Tobias Harris has done much better being coached by Doc Rivers again, of just kind of naturally fitting in. He's a guy who will step up as a scorer. Danny Green's been fine. Seth Curry's been better than advertised. Shake Milton's been better than advertised as kind of their backup backcourt. I really like what they got going on there. And Matisse Thybulle, that is a dude who's picking up like 4 or 5 steals and playing like 19, 20 minutes a game. Thybulle is really a defensive wrecking ball. But you're right. All of that is good enough to make them a playoff team and a top 4 seed, even without Embiid. It's good enough to get them a first-round win. But as soon as they start to run into those other upper echelon teams, whether it be Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Boston, that's where they are no longer the favorite. Even maybe Miami, like they need Joel Embiid to be the favorite in those type of games. And even then, there's going to be the skepticism until we see them actually do it, because they've had good teams in the past. They've had some playoff flameouts in the past. Doc Rivers has had some playoff flameouts, especially in recent memory. So there's a lot riding on this, but I really love the makeup of that roster when it orbits Joel Embiid. When it doesn't, you're filling the middle there with Dwight Howard and Tony Bradley, which isn't the worst place to be in the world, but it's not front runner status.
Right, and we say that all while Philadelphia is still in a 5-game winning streak. So, right. And still number
Credit
one.
To everybody else. Credit to everybody else.
Still number one in the East. But by the way, if you look at the top of that, check this out. Philadelphia, Brooklyn, Milwaukee, Miami, winning streaks of 5, 4, 3, and 4. And that's not even mention Atlanta, who is now in the 8th spot with a 5-game winning streak. There are some teams that are warming up. And we just talked about the Celtics going into the break. I think they beat Houston handily, which everyone is coming out of the break, but they just lost. I think they just lost. No. Yeah. No. They won, lost one, right? So, regardless, there's a few teams in the East that are heating up sort of at a really good time, because we're getting to that 40 game mark in a 72 game season. That some teams are going to have to start separating themselves.
And Boston is one of those teams that we've talked about as needing to make a move, needing to shake things up. Tristan Thompson, who you've called out from the beginning of the season, is officially on the block, as we knew he would be, at least according to reputable sources.
Oh, yeah. Even against Houston, I think he played like 7 minutes or something. Like it seems like Boston has figured out that 2 bigs just aren't going to work right now for them.
Yeah, and they want to keep Daniel Tice because he stretches the floor, and they need to keep Robert Williams III because he's the upside guy who does a whole lot of everything.
And he is doing a lot of that upside lately.
Right, yeah, absolutely. He's on a tear. It is really interesting to me. Again, modern NBA 101. You look at the trade market right now and the buyout market, and 95% of the names on that market are big men, because there are just not as many minutes to go around. You've got JaVale McGee from the Cavs, Andre Drummond from the Cavs. I don't know why they needed both of them, but they did. Hassan Whiteside has been playing on the Kings. Tristan Thompson, another big. Gorgie Dieng from the Grizzlies is on that list. And John Collins from the Atlanta Hawks, who's a young big with some upside, is on that list. The rest of the names that at least have been floated so far, and there's always going to be some surprises. Oh, and I forgot, LaMarcus Aldridge on the trading block from the Blazers. And you would have to imagine that Kevin Love is on the block, even though he has not been able to come back and be healthy yet. Outside of that,
Blake Griffin was bought out. So
right, absolutely. Other than that, you've got Avery Bradley and Wayne Ellington, who are, okay. Ellington as a sharpshooter, but kind of a low-minute guy. Bradley's already on a contender in Miami, and the fact that they're willing to potentially move him is not a good look. And you've got a couple of other random names, but it is almost all big men, and it's a musical chairs waiting on what happens with Andre Drummond. DeMarcus Cousins obviously has already been bought out. He's waiting for a new home. The Lakers are the number one destination right now, conceivably, because Anthony Davis may not be coming back for a little while longer, and that gets worrisome. And obviously the Nets are going to be second on that list because they're loading up for a championship run. I mean, it's very clear what they're doing. Of those names that I have mentioned, Andre Drummond is the guy that's holding everything up. The Cavs want even just a second-round pick for him, reportedly. And most other teams are going, yeah, you know what? We'll wait for him to be bought out. But they're not signing or trading for any of these other available bigs while they wait. And I got to ask, Arky, is Andre Drummond worth that? He's not even worth a second-round pick, according to plenty of other teams. But they're playing a little bit of roulette here in waiting for him.
Oh, Andre Drummond's clearly worth a second-round pick. Clearly,
absolutely.
Are you kidding me? I know this is. I'm surprised.
He is, but if you can get him without having to do that and for a lower number, that's what these teams are banking on. Is that a wise move?
Yeah.
If you're the Lakers, shouldn't you just try that second round pick and get him in the door?
I was just about to mention the Lakers. It's like if you're Los Angeles, just do it now. Do it now. You don't have to wait. You get the player you want, and you're not in it to build for the next 5, 7, 8 years right now. You're in it to win another championship, which you very well could do this year. And Andre Drummond is a very valuable piece for a second-round pick. You're practically second-round picks, especially that end of the draft. Do you know what the second-round pick for the Lakers is going to be?
Nothing. But
yes,
here's the flip side to that, though. The second round pick, you're right, is worthless, and the Lakers would do that in a heartbeat. But Drummond is still on a max contract, and when you're the Lakers or the Brooklyn Nets, and you've already made a bunch of moves, trying to match up the salaries to then get Drummond is the real issue. Because you're going to have to wind up shipping out more than you would, and certainly more than you would if you can just get him on a buyout where, hey, I'll pay you the vet minimum to come in since you already made your money on your buyout. But that is a roulette type of thing because somebody else may come along and actually give up that second round pick and absorb Drummond, and then you don't get him at all.
Yes, so clearly the play is to try to get something at all for Andre Drummond, and if someone's willing to give him something, they'll take him. They'll take that something as opposed to just having to pay out Andre Drummond at least for a buyout, and then Andre Drummond can do whatever he wants. But I don't think if you're the Lakers, you're clearly banking on, or Brooklyn for that matter, you're banking on the fact that you're going to be super attractive to him once it gets bought out. But you're still holding on to that buyout situation. You're still hoping that you get past March 25th. We're 10 days away, by the way, from the trade deadline. You're still hoping that some boy somewhere isn't just going to come say, yeah, here's a second round pick, come play for us. Whether it's it wouldn't fit with the Celtics.
Miami could move in there. The Celtics do have contracts that they could break up in order to make that work. So does Miami.
I want to say what makes sense, but there's also not all GMs are super smart. You know what I'm saying? so sometimes they make a deal that they shouldn't. That's why I'm trying to figure out what I think if the Celtics.
Thus, the example of why the Cavaliers picked up Drummond in the first place, probably because they got him. They got him for next to nothing from Detroit. And it's, you and I have talked about this before, the trade market being so depressed for Andre Drummond is really a testament to the modern NBA. But Cleveland got him on the hopes that they could pick him up low and flip him for something more. And the market has not been there, and he's made 0 cents as part of a rebuild.
Yeah, if you just want to sort of crunch the numbers and what can be given up, I mean, the Celtics are a smart spot to sort of be able to make that happen the easiest.
I think Dallas has some leeway. Dallas has some leeway. The Clippers could have some leeway. Like there's enough there that they could break that up. Milwaukee, I think, could make it happen, but it doesn't make sense there because you need a stretchy center next to Giannis. So that one's out. One of the names that's been bandied about is the New York Knicks. I don't know how you feel about that as a Knicks fan. Again, they're kind of in that mode where they got to make the playoffs at this point. And I think Drummond is an upgrade over the Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel, Taj Gibson trio. Does he make sense there long term? I don't know. So it really depends on if the Knicks are truly able to get him for a song. If Yusuf Nurkic was not coming back in Portland this year, then I would say the Blazers should be all in on that as a shot in the arm. But and then you got somebody like Toronto, where do you roll the dice on Andre Drummond to try to save your season? Because Aaron Baines has not been the solution there. They are under-talented, and they're on a losing skid here, but some of that's unfair because Siakam, Anunoby, and Van Vliet have all been out with health and safety protocols. But, I mean, they're sinking fast in the East.
Yeah, they've lost 5 in a row. They're still 2 games out of the playoffs, but that's only 2 games. So is Andre Drummond enough, and getting Siakam and all back, would that be enough to make it into the playoffs? I would argue yes, that it would get you in the playoffs. I don't know how deep it's going to get you in the playoffs. So do you just want to make the playoffs? Is that just the goal? Then sure, I guess. But I think you mentioned 4 or 5 teams above Toronto that make more sense. I think the Clippers are a very interesting place that for him. Although, okay, let's make a prediction right now. Where do you think Andre Drummond goes? I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I guess that's where I speak, right?
that is how these things work.
I don't think the Lakers are going to end up being able to make it work. I think that they will think that they have enough now, and when Anthony Davis comes back, there's no need to just keep piling on and possibly losing a couple, smaller parts to sort of, try to make the contract work. So I think he ends up in Boston. I think Boston makes that move. I think where they are with Danny Ainge, especially the GM there, I think they're in a desperate way to do something that they don't often do, which is make moves at the trade deadline and to do something that is at least seen as a potential game changer to get Boston not only just back into the playoffs for another year, but to get them to the conference finals, at least contention. So I think he ends up in Boston.
I disagree on that one because they've been grooming Robert Williams III a lot over the last couple of years, and now have kind of turned the keys to the car over to him. And is he quite as productive as Drummond? No, but is on such a cheaper contract at this point that I don't think they block the runway there. I think they use their assets and moving Tristan Thompson or Tice, but probably Thompson, and getting another bigger guard, as we've talked about in the past. I do think the Lakers wind up with him, but not via trade. I don't think the trade for Andre Drummond winds up happening. I think this is a game of chicken, and he's going to wind up in a Lakers uniform, and then you're going to see the Nets wind up going either the LaMarcus Aldridge route on a buyout, or DeMarcus Cousins, somebody like that. But honestly, the guy who makes more sense for the Nets right now, when you've already got tons of scoring and really you just need a little more of a defensive push, the guy either on the buyout market or trade, and there's 2, is going to be JaVale McGee or Gorgui Dieng. Like, I know they're not sexy names, but you don't need any more sexy names in Brooklyn. You need some of the lunch pail guys.
Yeah.
And Andre Drummond, don't get me wrong, is like a quintessential lunch pail type of guy. But I think the Lakers will have that attractiveness and that need. And that would be a coup for Anthony Davis, who doesn't like to play center anyway. Whereas, I think the Nets, there's only so many minutes to go around, especially in that front court, unless you're telling Drummond, hey, DeAndre Jordan is hardly going to play anymore, which I don't think the Nets will do. I think they get more of like a timeshare guy, whether it's McGee or Dieng, who makes sense, and Cousins could make some sense there too. Yeah,
if you're Brooklyn, you're not trying to sell tickets right now. I think you've got that whenever it's time.
And honestly, Tristan Thompson would make a ton of sense in Brooklyn too. Now, I don't think Thompson's going to get bought out, and I don't think the Nets are going to use whatever cap flexibility they have left, which is not much, to try to bring in Thompson, who is a double-digit million guy. But he would make a ton of sense there for what they need. Just a gritty rebounder, somebody who can play defense and just get out of the way on offense, besides setting a screen here or there.
Well, tonight I've got myself a couple of plays, including on the Brooklyn Nets, who are playing my Knicks tonight. At last time I looked, they were 8.5-point favorites. Blech. I got a rule, by the way, before you talk about DraftKings. Don't bet against my own team. Even though it's smart, I just can't do it. I may not bet in favor of them, but I can't bet against them.
That's real loyalty. That's real loyalty.
Yeah, like I'll just root for them. Like I'll have no money on that game, but I'll definitely I can root for the total safely. Like I can definitely root for it to go over. I think it's 223. I can root for that, but I can't root against the Knicks, especially when like 9 days ago they were in 4th in the East. Now they're in 7th. So the NBA could have started the playoffs earlier and they didn't. So
now see on that's the difference of being. That's the difference of being a Knicks fan versus a Wolves fan these days, because I could make some pretty decent money if I bet against the Wolves every night. Although they did just beat Portland, and Anthony Edwards had another amazing slam and 34 points. But yeah, not good. Let's talk DraftKings. You can create a new DraftKings sportsbook account and make your first deposit a minimum of $5. And when you do that, something amazing happens. You get a deposit bonus up to $1,000 with that first deposit. That's because DraftKings will match 20% of your deposit amount up to that $1,000 total for new customers only. So once you do that, you get your match, you pick your favorite games or markets to bet on, you follow the action. You can do basketball, you can do football, you can do baseball, whatever sport you like, probably tons of obscure ones that you only see on ESPN 8, the Ocho. You can do those too with DraftKings and the Brawl Network. And of course, don't forget us here at BbA. When you do that, use the special code. Help us out, dkng.co/brawlbook. That's dkng.co/brawlbook. And then everybody's happy. You're happy. DraftKings is happy. BbA is happy. Brawl Network's happy. It's a win-win-win-win-win. We should probably do predictions before we run out of time on this here show.
I was just gonna. Well, yeah, true. I was playing around with DraftKings, and I realized I could have bet live Russian table tennis at 1:00 this morning.
Okay.
So
that's on ESPN 12.
Yeah, I don't know what channel that's on, but I could like live scoring was happening, and the odds were being adjusted, and I had no idea, but I could have if I wanted. Thanks, DraftKings. Okay, so predictions. You know what, Joel? Give me one big prediction, one out there, very overwhelming, everyone's going to hear this and maybe crash into a wall prediction for the second half of the season.
After all this, after all the drama at the top of the Western Conference, and hats off to the Utah Jazz and Phoenix Suns for pretending they were top 2 seeds, after all this, the Los Angeles Lakers will still wind up winning the number 1 seed in the West.
Joel, they're 3 games back right now. Joel, that's so.
And I know Anthony Davis isn't walking through those doors anytime soon, but you get the sense that they've had some inconsistency, they've had some cruise control. But this is a LeBron team, late career LeBron. This is the Lakers. This is kind of what they do. Davis will be back just enough in time, and I do think they will swing one more deal to get a competent body up front who gives them a shot in the arm. And if it's Andre Drummond, look out.
You want to hear a wild one on my end?
All right.
From the first half of the season and a little bit more, I'm starting to buy into one particular team more than I ever thought I would. So Joel C. Cordes, my one giant, big old fat freaking prediction. When we get ready to start the playoffs, your top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference will include the Charlotte Hornets.
Whoa.
They're only a game out of it right now, to be fair to me.
That's true.
So, Yeah, they're only a game out of the Heat, who are right now in the 4th spot, who lead the Celtics by half a game and are on top of the Hornets by half a game. But I got to tell you, this Charlotte team is a lot better and a lot more fun than I thought they were going to be coming into the year. And I don't think you and I had any expectations for them to be anywhere near this good, competitive, and entertaining. And man, they're surprising all of us.
I did not think they would be a bottom team, but I thought bottom 4 or 5 in the East. Kind of fringe playoff for a little bit, and then their youth would show, and there still is plenty of time for that. But yeah, that's a big one. You could talk me into Boston's inconsistency issues, especially if they don't make any sort of a move. You could talk me into that and Charlotte bumping them, but you really see them being able to surpass Miami, who all of a sudden is all aboard the Jimmy Butler train and looking pretty good, even with Bam Adebayo out with injury right now.
I think they're playing better than what they are right now. I think they're going to come back to earth a little bit. I do not like Boston and their inconsistency. Kemba Walker's had some great play in the last couple of weeks leading into the All-Star break and back, but we know exactly what Kemba Walker is, which is we're not playing the second night to back-to-backs. I have the knee issues. I'm pretending to be him, by the way. I'm having the knee issues.
It's a terrible impersonation.
I'm sorry.
Just wretched. But anyway, continue. Not inaccurate. Just not good.
I'm Kemba Walker.
No. Stop that.
Yeah, why? That's how he sounds. That's exactly. Have you heard him? That's exactly how he sounds. In fact, I think I should win a Grammy in next year's Grammys for best BbA impersonation on the podcast. So that and my Kyrie are pretty good. Here's my Kyrie. You want to hear my Kyrie?
It's the exact same as Kemba Walker.
Hi, I'm Kyrie Irving. I'm stupid. So anyway, Boston, I really do not like Kemba Walker long term for that team. I just can't buy the consistency, and they dug themselves in such a hole to start the season that I think to sort of maintain the hot streak that they're on now, it's just going to be untenable for them for the most part. I know they just lost a game, but leave me alone. And as much as I would love to give the Knicks the benefit of the doubt, I think they need to make a move. And I think you're right. I think if they're going to stick with Mitchell Robinson and I think they're still making the playoffs, but I don't trust them to be in the top 4 seeds. So I think the top 3 are pretty solid, whatever order they end up in: Philadelphia, Brooklyn, and Milwaukee. But I think that 4th spot is spongy, and I think Charlotte is good enough. What I've seen in the first 40 games or so, that I think they could punch up a little bit and grab that 4th seed.
Couple of other awards I'm going to pick your brain on. Who's your defensive player of the year at the end? Right now, Miles Turner leads the league in blocks with over 3 per game. He's got a steal per game, but the Pacers are kind of falling out of playoff contention. Giannis is the sexy name. Joel Embiid is the sexy name. They're both averaging a block and a half and a little over a steal. You've got some other names in there. The perennial Rudy Gobert isn't going anywhere and has been on a top team in Utah. I think those are the names that'll get a lot of the dap for this. Clint Capella's played fine, but isn't really, it hasn't played enough. And then your steals leader, you've got TJ McConnell at almost 2, another Indiana guy. Drew Holiday from Milwaukee, almost 2, but he's only played in 28 games this year. And then it's like Fred VanVleet and LaMelo Ball and Matisse Thybulle again. Can I please point out that Matisse Thybulle from the Sixers, 1.6 steals per game. The dude plays 18 minutes per game. It's crazy. If he could score consistently, you're looking at a guy who would lead the league in steals, bar none. But anyway, who's your defensive player of the year?
It's Miles Turner. I mean, I think this award doesn't have to go to the guy on the best team. It's reserved, I think, a lot for someone who is maybe not nearly as recognized on one of the really good teams, even though, good teams and players, have won this, good players on good teams have won it. I think this is an award that Miles Turner, if he continues to double up in blocks, and continue to play its stingy defense to grabbing a couple of steals a game. I mean, that's what the award is. The award is preventing the other team from scoring, and that's 5 of almost 6 opportunities a game that it's specifically noted in the stat book that you're stopping the other team from scoring. So, I mean, I think Miles Turner's playing balls to the wall good.
I think Turner gets robbed and Gobert gets it again.
Why?
Even though he's the one who caused COVID for the NBA,
that should rule him ineligible.
It might, right? I just feel like Gobert will get it because the Jazz again have played so well and are kind of top of mind, and the Pacers not
you
so
said
much.
Yourself they're not going to be the number 1 seed.
I agree. I agree, and I called it before that team rips off a mid-season win streak like every year where they go like 20-2 and then kind of fall back into the 4th, 5th seed, what have you. And it looks like Utah is right on the cusp of doing that again, having dropped a couple in a row here. Let's change, but I do think it's Gobert. I think he's just one of those perennial guys. Him and Giannis and maybe Embiid are going to get it, and Turner is just not that sexy of a name or on a sexy team. Not that the Jazz are sexy, but Gobert has established himself doing this already.
You don't have to make love to his name. You just have to recognize the stats. By the way, the Jazz, you're right. They've lost 4 of 6.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those 2 wins is against the Rockets, who everybody is beating. So.
This is true. And they just lost to Golden State the other night, who, prediction time for me, the Warriors will make the playoffs. I think I've made that one already. They are super inconsistent, but when they're on, as they were in that Utah game, they can beat anybody in a single game. I don't know if they can beat people in a series with the youth movement they've got, but they can beat anybody on a given night. Steph has been that good, and when Wiggins and Oubre are chipping in, and they've got Draymond doing Draymond stuff, the bench is getting better on a game-by-game basis, and I've watched a lot of them this year. But here's a question for you, less of a prediction. Is there any chance whatsoever that LaMelo Ball does not win Rookie of the Year? Anthony Edwards is making a run here at the end. Wiseman had some early push, but that's kind of gone away. You know, and there's other guys like Pat Williams in Chicago has had some really nice moments and has been really underrated, but I don't see it. I mean, is Ball like a lock? And you're the betting man here.
Well, I actually haven't looked up the odds to see if he's still a lock, but he seems to be like he's pretty ratcheted down right now. There was a stat earlier on in the season, I think probably 22 games into the season or so, 25. I meant to share it on this here pod, but we got to talk about something else where Isaac Okoro, they were putting him on Cleveland. They showed a graphic of his who he was defending mainly on the other team. And it was every team's like best offensive threat. And granted, that doesn't show up in the stat book all the time that you're putting someone like Isaac Okoro, a rookie, on the best.
He's been wretched offensively though, and the Cavaliers don't have any other defenders, right?
Well, that's true. So that's what I'm saying. Like 22 games into the season, you're like, okay, there's a shot that there's someone other than this. But I think we're going to Charlotte for your Rookie of the Year.
Here's a much, much tougher one. Who's your Coach of the Year at the end of all this?
That's such a good question.
To me, while I let you think about this, clearly if the Sixers hold on to number 1, Doc Rivers is going to get some dap, but he's done this before, and the Sixers are really talented. To me, it's going to be Monty Williams from the Phoenix Suns in the turnaround that's been there. Sorry to steal your thunder. But to you know, and a lot of credit's going to go to Chris Paul and helping to coagulate everything there in a positive way. And we know they've had young talent for a while, but you know, Monty Williams was there last year too, and we saw the turnaround that started to begin and the run that they made in the bubble, and just he's a guy that you root for. I think after everything he went through in previous stops, and of course his wife passed away and he took some time away from the game. Like, I just think the story's going to be there behind him, and he's very deserving of it.
Yeah. So he was my number 1, just because of how good Phoenix has been this season. When there were so many people watching them stack talent up, thinking that eventually it was going to have to start to mesh, and now it finally has. Plus, you have the off the court story. That's something really that the NBA can sink its teeth into and rally around. And it's it's a bittersweet story, but it is it's one of ultimately love. But if I'm going to give hey, let's also say words about what if we go to Charlotte for a team that we were just talking to, and what's his name?
James Borrego.
Barango, right?
Borrego, no N.
Borrego. Yeah. Yes. What a dude, literally, like we talked about this offseason when we were doing the previews of this year, what acquisitions and things happen. And we literally, I think, went through Charlotte and just said next.
Yep.
Because we're like, not much to really talk about this year. And listen, it'll obviously be determined upon if they are able to finish the season into the playoff race and especially in the top 4 if they do get there, like I so humbly predict. That's a good place to go. I don't need Doc Rivers winning this one. Not if Phoenix is still good, not if Charlotte's still good. Doc Rivers, he's been plenty good for a while. And that Philadelphia team was a good team for a while.
I like the Charlotte pick a lot for the reasons you said, and because it's not just, LaMelo Ball has been better expected, therefore Charlotte's been better than expected. That's not the case. Like, Borrego has had to juggle the fact that at the start of the season, the starting backcourt was Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier, and you had Ball chomping at the bit, and he's played those 3 together. He's played all sorts of different combinations to keep everybody happy and get them their minutes. Ball eventually did win the starting point guard spot, and he's continued to find a role for them. Malik Monk has filled in. Let's not overlook the fact that a healthy Gordon Hayward, arrived there, and they had to integrate him, and he's really been kind of that steady veteran hand that they've needed. But then up front, PJ Washington has been a godsend for them, playing undersized center. He can shoot the 3 a little bit. He's gotten blocks. They really need those undersized centers because this is still a team that in the year 2021 trots out Cody Zeller and Bismack for major minutes at the center spot. Like, that's anything true. You get from PJ Washington is something you don't get from those guys. And Cody Zeller is one of the best screen setters in the league, but that is it. That's about all he does. And Miles Bridges has been nice too. So there's been a lot of that, like, development of these young guys, and it's been a bad team for a while and building on that. So yeah, I think I can vote for Charlotte for the same reasons that I could for Phoenix. Charlotte just feels like, maybe they're one step behind that, but one of those teams has Chris Paul and Devin Booker and the other one doesn't.
Yeah, by the way, I was just looking at the stats from their Saturday game against Toronto, which, by the way, they were killing Toronto until they gave up in the fourth quarter. Just Charlotte and made it game closer. Cody Zeller, 23 points. Bismack Biyombo, 20 points. You're right. PJ Washington, 26 points. I mean, not points, sorry, minutes. Minutes, I should say. Minutes, as you mentioned, with the major minutes. Yeah, this, what year is this? It's like, I'm not sure how it's working right now, but they're above 500 and they're staring straight into the teeth of home court if they keep playing well. So,
one last prediction. This is the biggie. NBA Finals for you and winning it. We've revisited this one a couple of different times, but this is why you do it throughout the season, because things change.
So, as you may remember, I very humbly picked the Denver Nuggets to win the West, and they're only in 5th place right now. So let's not act like that's nothing. I do not feel nearly as confident in Denver out of the West.
No.
I do have concerns about the Lakers, especially without Anthony Davis for any stretch of time, if that continues to be a thing or re-aggravates itself throughout the season. I don't feel comfortable enough liking Phoenix for the long term, although I'm really intrigued by what they can do. And as you said, Utah, they're not like a paper tiger. They're just a tiger I feel like we've seen before. And I'm not sure if they're going to be a different type of tiger this year. So,
and you've said nothing about the Clippers, who continue to be up and down. They just got smacked in the face by the Pelicans. The new Clippers are like the old Clippers, right? It's not Lob City. This one's a much better defensive unit, but they're super talented, and they just find new ways to kind of disappoint you and not believe in them.
Yeah, and this. I can't go with the Lakers. I can't go chalk. I'll go Utah this year. I'll go Utah able to find a way, just because I think they're consistent enough. I don't think that they fall all the way back to the 4 or 5 seed, come back to earth. I think they come back a little bit, but I think they got more staying power than you give it credit for.
And so if the Utah Jazz make the NBA Finals, contractually it's obligated that the Chicago Bulls must be making the playoffs and making the NBA Finals, right? Isn't that how it works?
Oh yeah, it's and then the finals go to NBC.
Right.
I think the TV rights go over too. I think that's. I mean, I haven't mentioned it because I thought everyone understood that. But yeah, you're right. And when it comes to the East, it's hard for me to go against Brooklyn. Like they look so good when they're on and when they're fully healthy, and they look so good when they're not on and fully healthy. Like this team, it feels like they're a juggernaut waiting to be unleashed in the last 25 games or so of the season. So I say it's Brooklyn, Utah, and that's going to be 400 points a game, which I look forward to.
And Brooklyn wins it?
Yeah, but I think that's a long series, though. I think that's a 6 or 7 game series.
Okay. I'm going to go Nets and Lakers. And it pains me because I really want the Bucks to make the NBA Finals. I really want this to work out for Giannis. They're deserving. I would be plenty happy for Embiid and Simmons if the Sixers can make it too, but you're right. Brooklyn is just loaded for bear, and they're going to continue to get more reinforcements here during the buyout time to shore up the very little weakness that they have. The only thing that could really hamper Brooklyn is what was going to hamper them at the beginning of the season, and that was going to be health, right? If Durant really can't come back and be healthy, if Irving is missing time, then all of a sudden their lack of depth is going to show. I think they've figured out the chemistry issues, and that was the other major concern for them. I think they've got that under wraps. Out west, you're right, it is tough. Like, can we really believe in the Jazz, Suns, or Clippers, or the Nuggets? They're just. I mean,
you want to, right? Like you
really want to. Yeah, you really want to, and you can
because the pieces are there.
Into them. You can talk yourself into them, but when push comes to shove, like I said, the Lakers wind up with the number 1 seed because that is the battle-tested group, not only led by LeBron James, but I think they're going to be extra cautious with Davis to get him back. Like I said, I do think Andre Drummond walks through those doors. And then all of a sudden it's battle-tested, it's deep enough, and it's the team that's got LeBron in the West, and that still wins playoff series. Like having LeBron on your team and the little plays, some of the ones that show up on the highlight reel and the other ones that just don't even show up in the stat book, like LeBron James's impact on it, I think is still big enough that it gets them out of the West, as much as I would love to see somebody else.
Yeah, I think in the West, there are a few teams that I think the pieces are there. But I think there's an adage in the NBA that it's like you have to get there and lose before you can get there and win, and teams that are just new to it, just for one reason or the other, don't win deep into the playoffs until they've had a chance to lose there, and then they come back.
Well, if that's the case, then the Portland Trailblazers should be going to the NBA Finals, right?
Joel C. Cordes, look at you. Punching them right where it hurts. Oh,
do it, Dame time. Do it. Be the dark horse. Get to the finals. Blazers, Nets. That's a cause we can rally behind.
We can. Listen. You put Dame Lillard on the court. I'm watching. That's it.
You put Carmelo Anthony coming back to New York to play for a championship.
Oh God! Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me, Joel. The Knicks,
that episode 52, the Greg Oden episode.
Knicks are doing fine. They don't have to do They don't have to do all reclamation projects. Okay. That will put us to bed. Now, what a nice full episode, Joel. Thank you for your effort. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely, thank you, and of course, everybody, if you're listening on Spreaker or Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, and you want the video version, please head on over to YouTube. Even if you don't watch the video version, come on over, give us a like, give us a subscription. We really would appreciate that. And if you're on the YouTube version and want the audio only, you can find us wherever podcasts are handed out freely.
Joel, God bless you, brother. Let's do this again soon.
We will. 2 days from now.
Oh yeah, BbA by time.